to be able to go on time.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Zach, by my count, we're only waiting on Patty. Is she coming?
I have not heard that she won't be here, so I expect her.
Okay, just making sure. I've been checking people off as they come in, so.
And we are live. I have to change a few settings and then start the recording, and we are ready to go anytime after that. Okay.
How once Zach hits record, everyone just is very quiet all of a sudden.
Tasha warned us.
Okay, so we are live and recording, but we still got technically a minute to start. So I will take off our reminder to the public, and we'll be ready to go. Oh, it looks like Patty's here.
Okay. And it looks like it is 5:30 by my clock.
Great.
I keep forgetting to grab a gavel.
Use your glass.
My water bottle. I will now call to order the November 19th, 2020 meeting of the Salem Historic Landmarks Commission. Will the recorder please take roll call?
Commissioner Cottingham.
Here.
Commissioner Kurdeman.
Here.
Commissioner McGlinty-Timbrook.
Present.
Commissioner Mulvihill.
Here.
Commissioner Schwartz.
Here.
Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Thomas, I see you, but
Here.
thank you. Commissioner Zimmerman.
Here.
Commissioner Schutte.
Here.
And Commissioner French.
Present.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not sure if everyone caught it, but there was a change to the agenda, and that is that we have been asked by the mayor to read and acknowledge the City of Salem proclamation for Native American Heritage Month, which is the month of November. So sorry, I got to pull up the right thing here. Whereas Native Americans are descendants of the indigenous inhabitants of what is now the United States and have moving stories of tragedy, triumph, and perseverance that needs to be shared with future generations. And whereas our country is blessed by the character and strength exemplified by Native Americans who have answered the call of service in our armed forces in greater numbers per capita than any other group. And whereas we recognize and deeply appreciate all that Native Americans have contributed through their generosity of culture and the continued practice of teaching economic, environmental, as well as cultural sustainability. And whereas we at the City of Salem affirm our commitment to working toward a community that fosters a deeper understanding, appreciation for the diversity of our cultures, and celebrate all that Native Americans have contributed to make Salem a richer and more vibrant city. Now, therefore, the mayor of the City of Salem, Chuck Bennett, does hereby proclaim November 2020 as Native American Heritage Month and ask that all residents of Salem join him in this special tribute to celebrate the contributions of Native Americans to our city and state and commemorate this month with appropriate programs and activities. And with us today, we do have Brees Edwards of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. If you want to say anything, Brees, you're welcome to.
Oh, you're muted.
Par for the course. Thank you, Commissioner, and the entire commission. And I'd like to extend my thank you to all of you. Turn up the volume.
Yeah,
You're very quiet.
we don't usually say that about you, Bruce.
No. Is that any better? Yes.
A little bit.
We'll just have to go with this. I do want to say thank you to the city and the commission for all of the work that they do for cultural resources. And rather than to speak about land acknowledgements, I would like to just say to everyone that every place today is someone's home from yesterday. And the state of Oregon today is, its population is the result of many generations of work prior, many of those generations being Native American, but also those later. I would ask that everybody seek an understanding of the place that we live, seek to inquire about those people who occupied and tended and provided stewardship to the lands that we live on today. So, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Breeze.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now move on to public comment period, and no one was signed up ahead of time. Is there anyone else additionally who would like provide public comment?
I don't believe we've had anyone additionally come in. Shelby, can you confirm that?
Yeah, everyone that's joined the meeting was for the case.
All right, thank you. Okay, I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
I move to approve the minutes as written, even though I wasn't there.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Schutte, seconded by Commissioner Timbrook to approve the minutes. All those in favor?
I
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Did anyone abstain and we just missed you in the craziness? No. Okay. We're going to move on to design review now. And I got to switch scripts, so I'm sorry, just 1 minute. I will now open public hearing for historic review case number HIS 20-27 for 900 Court Street Northeast. Will the recorder please read the hearing procedure statement into the record?
This is a public hearing to consider case number HIS 20-27 for property located at 900 Court Street Northeast. The criteria applicable to this hearing are listed in Salem Revised Code, Chapter 230.065, General Guidelines for Historic Contributing Resources. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing with statements or evidence sufficient to afford the Historic Landmarks Commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals, LUBA, on that issue. If similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the conclusion of the hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony. The Historic Landmarks Commission may then either continue the public hearing or leave the record open for at least 7 days.
Thank you, Zach. Are there any conflicts of interest or ex parte contact from the commission at this time?
I guess I do have something, Commissioner Schwartz. When I was at the State Historic Preservation Office, a member of state park staff asked me about a compliance process potentially for this project under 358.653. I merely provided what I thought was guidance. I didn't see any plans. It wasn't that far along in the process by any means, but I have heard of the project. I do think I can be incredibly impartial. But just to make that clear.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I will state that I also have ex parte contact as part of the state parks process. Representative from the Landmarks Commission was asked to sit on the group that meets to discuss this project and provide a recommendation to the Parks Commission. And I was elected by the HLC to sit on that, sit with that group. And so I do have additional knowledge regarding the project outside of what is provided to us, but it will in no way sway my decision to approve or deny at this meeting. And may I now have the staff presentation, Kimberly?
Good evening. I'm Kimberly Fitzgerald, the Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Salem. I'd like to enter the staff report, its attachments, and all public testimony associated with HIS 20-27 into the public record. So the Oregon State Capitol and Wilson Park are individually listed on the National Register of Historic Places. On this map, I just want to point out the World War II Memorial, which is up on the northwestern corner. You can kind of see it here on this aerial, and the HLC reviewed and approved the installation of this memorial back in 2011. And you can see the proposed location there on the southwest corner. That's the subject of tonight's hearing. A little bit of history and background. Wilson Park existed long before the construction of the current Capitol building. And previously, as you can see on the photo here on the left side of your screen, the second Capitol faced the river to the west, I believe, as the first one did. And according to nomination documents for the Capitol that exists now, so the picture there on the right hand of your screen, that building was constructed between 1936 and 1938, and they chose to turn the Capitol at that point. Wilson Park was a city park from 1853 to 1965, and then it became officially part of the Capitol grounds and became state-owned. The park is named after William H. Wilson, who was a preacher, physician, and some consider founder of Salem. He donated the land for the Capitol and Wilson Park, which is why it's named after him. I just want to point out this table, which is in SRC 230, table 230-3. It identifies the significant features in Wilson Park that require historic design review approval if they're going to be altered or relocated, and that will come into play a bit later. So now to discuss the proposal that's before you this evening. So the applicant is proposing to construct a multi-component memorial dedicated to Oregon's Vietnam veterans. And it'll be located, as you can see here, in the southwest corner of Oregon State Capitol's Wilson Park. This plan shows the state capitol, the park detail and the current location for the proposed memorial. This is a further detail of the proposed memorial, which has 10 different components. I do want to point out there is no number 5. It's not a trick. There was originally a number 5, but they deleted it from their proposal and just chose not to renumber. I'm going to go through the individual components to help clarify the materials and design. So as you can see here, the applicant is proposing 2 bronze sculptures. And the design also includes a grassy water bioswale feature, and abutting that are 4 brothers benches, which will be of black granite. The eastern end of the memorial site, they're proposing a bamboo and a wall. You can also see the 8-foot tall lanterns, which are also in that basalt stone base. And those are, you can see those in the picture, but they're also throughout the memorial. The main feature is the black granite memorial wall with columns ranging in height from 3 feet to 8 feet. And that'll be next to a central plaza, which will be surfaced in a very hard wood. And then there'll be a 30-inch high basalt stone wall, which will have granite engraved plaques embedded in it. And that'll be adjacent to that curving boardwalk as well as within the MIA POW stations. And that's that picture in the lower left of your screen there. So I want to talk a little bit more about the options for the siting of the Gold Star Families Memorial component. Now, the applicant has 2 alternative locations, and on the plan you can see there's a location which is their preferred location, which is where the parade of animal sculptures are now. There's a picture of that on the bottom of your screen. Some of you, if you've been to the Wilson Park, you're probably familiar with them. If you're not, they were installed in 1991. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And the second alternative location would be co-located with that MIA POW station there a bit further to the northwest. You can also see on your screen their proposed trees for removal. There are 3 trees that are proposed for removal, and in addition, they're proposing to remove some of the existing concrete and some existing benches as well. So now I'm going to go through the guidelines, the applicable guidelines and findings. And this screen, we're going to go through the findings in a batch, the ones that staff believes are don't apply, and then the ones that are easily met. So staff recommends the HLC find the historic use will be retained. It'll be continued to be used as a public park, and that the grading is fairly minimal, just enough necessary to do that scraping. And as the applicant will describe, they're paying special attention to ensure that the tree roots are not adversely affected by this construction. And we'll be elevating that wooden plaza there at the center in order to ensure that. And then this batch 230.065 B, C, and D, staff recommends the Landmarks Commission find that there's no historic material proposed for removal or reconstruction. And further, section H, there's no plans to correct any structural deficiencies, and therefore those guidelines are not applicable to the evaluation of this proposal. So moving on to 230.065E. So as I mentioned before, the applicant has 2 alternatives. So I'm going to take each alternative separately and make recommendations to the HLC about each alternative. So the second alternative, which was 10B, that location along that north-south path linking the World War II Memorial to the Vietnam War Memorial, that will not adversely impact any significant or character-defining features within Wilson Park. Therefore, staff recommends that the HL find that this guideline has been met should the applicant choose this location. However, if the applicant chooses their preferred installation, which is at the current location of the Parade of Animals, staff recommends the HLC adopt a condition to ensure that this guideline is better met. While not a historic feature of Wilson Park, it has been identified in SRC 230, and this outdoor bronze sculpture designed by Peter Heltzer, installed in 1991, is evidence of the history and development of Wilson Park over time, and its integrity should be respected. So F and G, I'm going to take those together. While the applicant is proposing to remove trees, some existing concrete paving, and several existing benches in order to construct the new memorial, a majority of the existing trees will be retained along with the open lawns and associated landscaping. The overall integrity of the primary resource on the site and the significant resources within Wilson Park have been retained, and there's no significant historic features within Wilson Park that have been proposed for removal or alteration. So staff recommends the HLC find that the proposal has been designed to minimize changes, is compatible with Wilson Park, and that SRC 230.065F and G have been met. So regarding testimony received, you should have received today email testimony from Sarah Owens and Michael Livingston, submitted on November 18th, expressing their concerns about the memorial proposal. We've received no formal comments from the neighborhood association, although I did attend the Can Do Neighborhood Association meeting. It was yesterday evening, and the applicant can speak to that if they wish. The city department comments, the planning division has indicated that a class 2 site plan review will be required, as well as a sign variance. And the building and safety division has indicated that building permits will be required. We've received no formal public agency comments, but the applicant can speak to the other agencies that have been involved. Some have reviewed and recommended approval. And as Jamie mentioned, there is a committee that still has, I don't believe, has given a final recommendation, and the OPRD commission still needs to make their final decision about this proposal. So in conclusion, staff recommends that the Landmarks Commission approve the proposal with the following condition. Should the applicant proceed with siting the Gold Star Family Memorial within the location of the existing parade of animal sculptures, the applicant shall ensure that the parade of animals sculptures are relocated to another location on the Capitol grounds. The applicant shall submit a site plan showing the proposed new location of the sculptures for historic design review approval prior to the issuance of building permits for the Vietnam War Memorial. That concludes the staff report.
Thank you, Kimberly. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff?
I do.
Commissioner Schwartz.
I didn't raise my hand. Sorry. I just
Commissioner
talked.
Schutte, you're next.
No,
Sorry,
thanks.
Russell.
No problem.
Kimberly, when you're talking about the historic materials and features, are you just talking about those items called out on the SRC 230 list and not necessarily those items in the National Register nomination, or both?
Both. And when I say historic, I mean from the identified period of significance from the National Register nomination, but also those items called out in that table I showed you.
Okay, thank you.
Similar, actually, to that. On that same note, is there any archaeological that has to be done prior to this too?
There is
Due to
archaeological, yes, there is archaeological compliance that has to be done. And as I understand it, I just saw, and maybe Jamie can verify with her other hat, a permit has been submitted. No, it hasn't. That was for the other piece. So
Maybe.
the applicant can probably speak to this. We did
Okay.
notify them.
That's
They
fine.
are aware.
Okay.
I have a
Just
question.
knowing the location, I was assuming that there was some other involvement that needed to happen on the state level as well as
Yes.
our stuff. So, okay, thanks.
I have an additional question, Kimberly. This is something that in our discussion as part of the group came out, and that was in talking with Christy Sweet, who used to be the state parks historian up until the layoffs happened. She stated that the fuchsia waves that occur on the south end of the park there are one of the character defining features called out in the nomination, but that is not on our list. And this
No.
bisects one of the fuchsia waves.
So in terms of, and now I'm going to go back to 2013, and I know I don't think anyone that's on the commission now, right? So part of what we did when we created that table and established this section of code, we had a technical advisory committee, and I'm going to call Ian on the carpet. He was on that committee at that time and the committee went through the nomination and pulled in order to make that list, to make this kind of review easier and more straightforward. But that said, given that we're here tonight at this hearing, you do have the ability to move beyond just that table. And if you believe that that's a character defining feature and that there's an adverse effect, then you can certainly, you're right.
So the table was
Is that
created.
your question?
So the table was created. Yeah, the table was new to me. So the table was created not to encompass all of the character defining features, but to point out kind of instances when HLC might need to be involved when things are happening in State Capitol State Park, or?
So the way the table is, so the way that table, and let me go to that page, and I don't think it comes up. So any alteration to those specific features require, it's specifically called out that they require historic design review under the SRC 230065, these criteria that are before you tonight.
But it's not all encompassing of the National Register nomination.
Because it would be, yes, I think that in our discussions when we were creating that code, it's, as you know, there have been challenges in the past, just completely depending upon a National Register nomination. I know that's happened before in Portland, and we wanted to put in the code as clear and objectively as possible what character defining features, because the Capitol is a very complex site, and that was the intention. However, because of the other language in our code, it allows you to go beyond that short list. Just because it's not on the list, you can include, like you say, the fuchsia waves if that's something that concerns you, and you've called that out.
Yes, it does concern me. Does anyone else have questions for staff?
Before I,
Oh.
Okay,
Commissioner Mulvihill.
I can stop
Is there,
sharing.
and I don't know if this is a question for staff or the applicant, but is there a reason why they prefer site one as opposed to site two? Is it because of the visual impact, or is it because of like logistical stuff, like it's just a more appropriate buildable site?
I think that the applicant would be the better one to answer that. And I know that they haven't made a final decision, as I understand it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
Commissioner Kerdeman.
So sorry.
So since the archaeology has not been done yet, we don't know exactly what they may or may not be impacting. And so is there enough room for design alterations if archaeological material is discovered? Is there any room for avoidance versus impacting those? Like if that has to happen, would we see another design review?
So Jessica, as I understand it, and the applicant will speak to this, that this is still early in their design process. And I know we had some discussions with the applicant about whether or not it was premature to come to Landmarks Commission before their design was final. I think that it will be really good for them to hear these kind of questions tonight, but I think they should be the ones to answer that question about how much flexibility they have in changing their design if something significant is found during the archaeological compliance portion. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay, I keep seeing hands raised, so anyone else? Okay. I will now call for the applicant's testimony. Please state your name and address for the record, or your business address, and please note your testimony is limited to 15 minutes.
Chair French and Commissioners, I'm Steve Bates. I'm the president of the Vietnam War Memorial Fund. My address is in Boring, Oregon, and the Vietnam War Memorial Fund is located in my office, Post Office Box 1448 in Boring. A Vietnam War Memorial in the Oregon State Capitol grounds is needed for several reasons. First, there are memorials in our capital city of Salem for every war since the Civil War except the Persian Gulf War, known as Operation Desert Storm, and the Vietnam War. Second, Washington and California installed Vietnam War memorials on their respective capital grounds decades ago. Thirdly, having a Vietnam memorial in proximity of the Oregon World War II memorial would be fitting, as the World War II generation, which is known as the greatest generation, are the mothers and the fathers of the Vietnam generation. These two memorials would represent two generations with different societal experiences. Over the past 3 years, a group of Oregon residents have been working to make a Vietnam War Memorial on the Oregon State Capitol grounds a reality. The Vietnam War Memorial Fund was founded in 2017 This nonprofit was founded as it is our intention to fund this memorial from the private sector with grants and contributions. This project has received endorsements from around the state. 18 of the 36 county commissions have formally endorsed it. We have received endorsements from many elected officials such as city mayors and state legislators. We have received contributions from hundreds of Oregonians. This project has been received so well because during 2018 and 2019, a steering committee met regularly to determine the features and elements of the proposed Vietnam War Memorial. This design brings art, nature, and tradition together. The greatest majority of the trees on the Capitol grounds will be incorporated into the Vietnam Memorial. I might add that the fuchsia beds will be untouched as they are outside of the proposed boundary of the proposed memorial. The sculptures are designed by Oregon-based sculptors. Where possible, the stonework will be Oregon natural stone. It is intended to use local Oregon contractors and workers. And to discuss the memorial design, I wish to introduce Mike Abate of Abate Designs.
Mike, I believe you're trying to talk, but you are muted.
Thank you so much. Mike Abate, landscape architect, 1236 Northeast Market Drive, Fairview, Oregon. Can everybody see the screen with the slide up? Yes, okay, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna walk us through and I'm gonna skip over the things that Kimberly really described very well. So where it's currently proposed in the park. I think this is a helpful slide because it gives you a little bit of context, shows the World War II memorial, shows that axis that picture of the previous Capitol building was very clear, had a paved axis right down the line, but you can see that the Wilson Park was laid out in a symmetrical design. And so the location of the proposed Vietnam Memorial is directly flanking the World War II memorial, and actually some of the elements are meant to reflect and mirror a mirror image of the World War II wall, the black granite wall. But we'll talk about that in a second. These are views of the two corners. This is on the left, as you see, looking southeast at the World War II memorial site. And then this is almost the same relative position on the south, looking northeast, and you can see the what we call the embracing tree, the western red cedar that has these amazing branches and arms that reach out. Some other contextual photographs on the left. You were looking south at the embracing tree, and then diagonally right across the corner, you can also see the street trees along Cottage and State Street. I should mention that none of the street trees are going to be disrupted. And then on the far right, and as you can tell from that middle slide, it's a very heavily treed portion of the park, and we're able to retain virtually all of those trees. Another big blue atlas cedar that's being preserved and woven into the memorial. I want to touch upon the committee developed 9 design objectives, but the ones I want to talk about this is a place of beauty, peace, and truth about the experiences of veterans. That's a key objective, is sort of teaching folks about what the war was like, and particularly what it was like to serve and return back to the United States. We wanted to create places of reflection, but also inspiration through evocative art, and to have places for both public gatherings and private gatherings. We're using long-lasting, low-maintenance materials and systems, and of course, we're making sure that the entire experience is completely barrier-free. So one of the things we do is to compare the wars. And we're looking for inspiration, since these two memorials will be flanking each other. One of the things we can look at is just how were they similar, how were they different? Well, World War II had absolutely rock solid public support. Vietnam, on the other hand, the public support was fractured. There were differences of opinions over how the United States should be involved. In World War II, the veterans were welcomed home with open arms, and they were heroes. In Vietnam, when people came back, they were told not to wear their uniforms, and they were ignored and sometimes even insulted. And as Steve mentioned, the war in World War II were the moms and dads of the sons and daughters of Vietnam. And likewise, the two memorials that you're going to look at tonight have some differences as well. You'll see that the World War II memorial, as I mentioned, was very clear cut. We knew who the enemy was. It was in two places in the world, but there was solid support. So it's really represented with very square corners, completely wide open and transparent. Vietnam was much more subtle and nuanced. And so in the Vietnam memorial, we're using arcs and curves. In the World War II memorial that exists, there is no nature. There are no trees, there's no vegetation within the memorial itself. In Vietnam, we took a different approach. We really tried to embrace the natural tree canopy and vegetation of the area. And the World War II memorial is made of completely of imported granites and those kinds of materials. Here in the Vietnam memorial, we really want it to be made of Oregon materials. So this is the plan, and I'll talk through the details. First of all, I want to show this line that my cursor is following right now is the fuchsia bed. So you can see we're retaining the fuchsia bed in its current location. There's even a camperdown elm tree here that we're retaining, and a rhododendron. Both are part of the fuchsia bed that we're absolutely retaining here. As you come into the memorial, you'll be greeted by a bronze sculpture by an Oregon sculptress named Libby Caruth. This is called The Soldier's Return. You'll get a look at it in a little more detail. You can see this, and we're gonna, I think the next slide, I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit on the wall. This is the column wall. That's the memorial monument wall that Kimberly talked about. It is, rather than the World War II memorial, just a solid 8-foot high black granite wall. This is a wall that's made of columns. In other words, it's fragmented. It reflects the fragmented support for the memorial, but it also reflects the symmetry of the park in its dimensions and its location. I'll go back to the rest. You come in, there's a major space here that can be used for public events, but the backside of these column walls are, you can see that curve. This is all wood. It's a wood decking. What that does is it elevates the structure up above the roots so that we can preserve and retain the embracing tree that's located right here. It's flush paving all the way across. This is a change of materials, but it's still no step up to the deck. And then this large space is enclosed by arced basalt walls. We talked about the 4 brothers benches. Those are there were 4 families in Oregon that each lost 2 sons in the war. And so there's a recognition of each of those 4 families. This center feature is a bioswale. Some of the veterans really harken back to one of the things they loved about Vietnam was the landscape. 2 features that were brought into to my attention were the rice paddies and bamboo. And so we've tried to incorporate those. This won't be a rice, of course, but it is a wetland that actually helps us because we'll handle all runoff from any kind of impervious surface there. This is a screen back here of bamboo that's helped to contain and enclose the memorial. And it ends at the second sculpture, which is about nurses and medics and their role both in the war, but also in advancing our knowledge of health and medicine, that tremendous advances that happened during the war. So those are the main components within the Vietnam portion. The walkways that you see are not all exactly the way they show up currently, but this is the plan that Oregon State Parks has developed to better match the walkway system with the design of the park. And so what we've done in the memorial is we've incorporated the geometry from state parks into the memorial itself. This large or long north-south axis that's got a slight curve to it connects. This is the bottom of the World War II memorial. And so you'll see that there's 2 alcoves along the way. One alcove will have the Purple Heart plaque. These are alcoves that are meant to celebrate things that are not tied to any one particular war, like Oregon's Purple Heart recipients, for example, POWs and MIAs, not just from Vietnam, but from all wars, are going to be located along that walkway. This wall here and this alcove contains a plaque for the Persian Gulf veterans, and then it is also a potential place for the Gold Star Families Monument that Kimberly talked about. We would like to have it. Our preferred location is on the axis of the state capitol with a redesign and a removal. That rectangle is the rubber surfacing underneath the sculptures, the parade of animal sculptures. We think that that can be relocated to somewhere over here, fairly close, but that would be our preference, is to locate that monument there. If that's, we are in a process with OPRD, and so that's one of the purposes of this meeting tonight. I talked about that. This just shows you the trees. All the green are trees that we're retaining. There are 3 trees that would be removed. The materials we're building it from, as mentioned, were Oregon basalt, probably Ipe or another really strong wood surface that doesn't get mildew and slippery. This is picture above is in the Pearl District, where it's been used as sidewalks and can support even fire trucks. It's that strong. Some design images you saw. This is from above at the entry. This is looking into the overall plaza and the memorial wall itself. And with that, I am going to show a video of a kind of a walkthrough. Can somebody give me a thumbs up? Do you hear it and see it?
Can see it, can't hear it.
That's the Soldier's Return statue. You're walking into the main body of the space. There's one of the lanterns that kind of mark the perimeter. That's the south of the 2 alcoves. These walls are designed so that interpretive material about the wall, about the war, maybe a timeline of the Vietnam War, can be inset into the walls. And now you can get a sense of that existing tree. That's the existing blue spruce that's there. And this is where you'll come and you'll see the names of people engraved, the service people who died in the Vietnam War. They'll be grouped by the city that they are, their home of record was, like Albany, Baker City, etc. We've protected that embracing tree. There's the Bioswale feature. It gives a little bit of light and open space and brings us into the next room, if you will, focused on nurses, medics, and the role of medical professionals in the war. And some information, interpretive information about that in the wall back behind them. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Havel from Oregon Parks and Recreation to kind of tell you where we are in the process.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. First, I wanted to answer an earlier question, why this location rather than the northeast corner of the park? I think that came up.
Hey, Chris, real quick,
yeah.
before you get started,
Sure.
Name and business address.
I'm sorry, Chris Havel, Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. Our address here is 725 Summer Street Northeast, Salem 97301. State Park staff advised moving the memorial from the northeast corner to the southwest simply because it's more physically suitable for the proposed design. Now, as far as where we're at, results from your consideration will go to our review committee, who will eventually submit a report to the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department agency director. And that will be after we do a separate public outreach. We're collecting comments and design advice at this early stage so that we can present to our commission the most complete view of the project as possible. So our director will deliver that report and a staff recommendation to the Oregon State Parks and Recreation Commission as early as February 2021. The high-level concepts that are currently under consideration aren't ready for permitting. And if our commission approves the concept, it will condition construction on the applicant continuing to seek and obtain all the necessary approvals, especially if the design changes slightly as it's refined and as additional permitting relates to things like archaeological findings, infrastructure requirements there in the park, or natural resource considerations. We have contacted the SHPO to keep them apprised so that they're ready to engage when the time comes. I haven't heard anything back from them yet, but we'll make sure that we keep all of those plates spinning as this moves forward. The applicant is also consulted with the Capital Planning Commission and, as you heard earlier, the Can-Do Neighborhood Association to solicit their feedback. So we're going to gather this all up, review it with the OPRD committee, and then submit a report. And we'll keep City of Salem and Kimberly informed as we go through those steps so you can understand where we're at. I'm happy to answer any questions from the department's perspective. As the department hasn't yet taken a position other than we're supportive of the concept. It's the design and how it's executed that our committee will comment on and give that to our director for use with the commission.
I think that completes our presentation and be open to any questions you have.
All right. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the three? Okay, Tracy Schwartz, and then Shooty, you'll be next.
Thanks.
I actually raised my hand that time, Russell. I didn't just cut you off. Mike, I had a question for you, and apologies about my ignorance on plants. It's something my mom reminds me of often while I make her do my yard work. Bamboo in this climate, is that, I know Oregon gets lots of water and can grow anything, but I'm just curious about the success of bamboo. I totally understand choosing bamboo. I think it's a beautiful choice, but just its maintenance and its upkeep. Just curious about that. If you could speak a little to that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. That's a great question. Fortunately, there are hundreds of varieties of bamboo that are very, very successful here in Oregon. And if you go to probably any Japanese garden in town, you'll see giant timber bamboo, for example, as one of the main ones. However, there are some downsides to the bamboo. And so we want to make sure that there's two main categories, and I apologize for being a plant nerd, but there's running bamboo that can be can spread, and clumping bamboo. Clumping bamboo doesn't spread. And so we would use a clumping bamboo in a barrier in a container, but there should be no problem with hardiness, and it's a very low maintenance kind of cast iron plant.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's it. Thanks, Jamie. Chairman.
Chairperson, thank you very much. Commissioner Shooty.
Yeah, this is a question I guess it would be for possibly even Steve and Chris as well. As far as monies, grants, whatever, getting to build this, is for long term looking at this, because it's going to be in a state park, would the state be then taking over for maintenance sort of things, and or is there contingency funds to help with maintenance continued, especially using products like wood and things, which, Mike, the design is beautiful, and I understand your vision there. It's great. I just, being how it's going to be continued on its legacy and well and kept up. So
yeah, I'll speak to that specific issue, and then Steve, if you want to jump in. So thank you for watching out for us with that question. The state park rules require that a contingency fund based on the replacement value be deposited by the applicant. And so we'll use that money to maintain the site. When that money is exhausted, then we accept the ongoing burden. So I think it's 10% of the replacement value gets deposited into a fund, and then we base our maintenance on that. But we accept, the state accepts some of that burden going forward because of the public value associated with establishing the memorial. I mean, there has to be public value or it wouldn't be appropriate for the park. So there's some burden associated with that, and we accept it.
Thank you.
Excuse me, for the record, the Vietnam War Memorial Fund is aware of the state law requiring a 15% deposit of replacement value.
I almost saved you some money there. I apologize.
We almost had it in the public record.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Kimberly, did you have a question?
It was a question, and I'm not sure if it was answered, and Patty actually asked it earlier, and that was if you could answer the reasoning for the different alternatives for locating that Gold Star family memorial.
Sure, I can address that. Let me go back and let's look at a plan that might be helpful. Sorry about that, a little clunky. Okay, so this is the preferred location. Part of the reason the Gold Star Families Monument is a national memorial that it was not designed by us, but it's designed by a nonprofit foundation, and it has been installed in 45 of 50 states. It recognized Gold Star families are families who've lost someone in a war. So it's a very large group of people through our nation's history. It's a very significant group who've made kind of the ultimate sacrifice. They've given of a family member. That monument makes sense to us to be a bridge, to be located in between the World War II Memorial and the Vietnam Memorial on axis with the Capitol. And so that is our preferred location. But we also recognize that there is a sculpture there. And so in our conversations with Oregon State Parks, they haven't ruled out moving the sculpture, but they haven't approved it either. And so we wanted to make sure that if it's not possible to install it here, it would go in this northern alcove, again, in between the two, but not equally distant. So does that answer the question maybe that Patty, Commissioner, had? Okay, thank you.
I saw Commissioner Thomas. Yep.
Oh, hey, thank you. That's a great presentation as a recovering landscape architect, and I really appreciate everything that you did here. It's really, really good work. Makes me miss my landscape architecture days. One question I had with the trees, I don't know if we can pull up the kind of the removal piece.
That plan?
Yeah, that one. Yeah. So the right where the 3 is in the plaza area. And so that seemed like,
yes,
that's like about a 30-foot distance across. And so my thought was, I mean, if we're removing a tree, we should I see you put 2 smaller ones there now that it's in color, but I don't know, a tree might feel right in that space. I just encourage you to take a look at that and see if that's something that works. I was thinking, because of the recognition you gave to the rice fields and stuff, maybe there was a tree that worked in both climate zones, Vietnam and here. The climate zones are pretty different, so maybe not. But then also when you take that tree out there, there's going to be kind of a big open space right there. So maybe I don't know if you have another tree planned for where you're taking that out just to put something back in there. But I would hopefully you'll take that into consideration.
Thank you, Commissioner. Again, another really good point. I think, yes, these trees will come out. And I think what we have here is we have, particularly look at the 72-inch redwood, right? We have some very, very large trees here. So it would completely make sense in this planting bed and maybe in this peripheral area to have some smaller smaller maybe flowering trees, for example. This area here, I think we could take a look at putting a tree in. I know one of the things that we're trying to do is this will probably be a space that gets used for large events. You know, maybe there's 100 people for a Veterans Day celebration, Memorial Day, those kinds of things. And so we want to make sure that there's at least one sort of area, a big enough gathering area that events could happen. But good point, and we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, it makes sense now that you described it might be for events, but yeah, it just seemed like a very large open space with a lot of concrete and hardscape, basically. Thanks.
Yep.
I have a question for you, Mike. So we talked about the fuchsia waves, and I know that there are 3, and the one that's showing on the screen here is the second one. And so it does appear to still, there's 3 like slowly getting smaller waves, and this appears to bisect the third one. Pathway C, I believe it is on the plans. I know F is still an intact fuchsia wave, but it is bisecting the third one there. I know I don't have the original diagrams with me, but.
Well, this will be helpful. If you follow my cursor, there's a little dotted line. Mm-hmm. And that's the edge right now of where the lawn, I'm going to call it the fuchsia bed, right? Mm-hmm. So you're right, it is a wave here, but it sort of peters out into sort of a amorphous shape. But we've moved things around so that all of those fuchsia plants in that bed are retained as is. And you're right. There's a little crossing with a walkway here. We took kind of the narrowest place we could to allow circulation, but there's no fuchsias in that area. It's a piece of bare ground right there.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicants from Commissioner Kerdeman?
Thank you for answering my question I had previously. But I have an additional question. Sorry, I want to call it a bioswale. That's not appropriate.
Yeah, that's fine.
The wetland water feature. There we go. The wetland water feature. Is that going to have enough illumination around it so that at night people aren't misjudging on where the edge of that is? I see the lanterns on the edge, but are they going to be bright enough to illuminate that so that at nighttime we're not worrying about small kids or animals running into that?
Yes, good point. And maybe the photograph or let's see, I have one right there. So that shows a little bit. So this is not a deep hole in the ground. It's really shallow, and the vegetation itself will be pretty high. There will be lighting, and this illustration doesn't include all the site lighting that'll be, but you can see that there's a total of 4 lanterns right around here. So there will be night lighting, and this will be pretty much like walking alongside any other kind of a landscape bed. Apologize for that. So it shouldn't be, it won't be a trip hazard. We'll take a look at it. If we need to put an edge on the walkway, that's another thing that we could do.
Okay, I see I have a hand. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to add it. Yeah, an edge might help too with some of the visually impaired members as well.
That's a good point.
I see I have Commissioner Zimmerman has a question.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the work all the folks are doing on this project to make it kind of work within the site. I'm curious if Chris might kind of know the answer. Is there any kind of long-range plan regarding the amount of memorials or attractions that are being put into the Wilson Park area? Is there any kind of
thought process going forward with, should this one be approved, how that might affect some things going forward in terms of the other historical aspects of the park?
Extremely insightful question. The landscape plan that's adopted for the property doesn't really address this question, but the review committee that we convened is very interested in that question and an answer to it. We don't have an answer to it yet, but future of the park, density of memorials, what do we do with the next request? How do we balance the different needs of the park in public service? Those are all top of mind for the review committee, and I expect that question and possible answers to it to feature prominently in the report.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could add one more thing, in the design of those two alcoves that connect along the main walkway that goes north-south, those are really designed so that additional plaques and information could be added to those walls without other features being needed to be built or constructed. So there's some flexibility for future, I don't know if you call it expansion, but future commemoration along that way.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schwartz, do I see your hand up again?
You do. Apologies. I thought of another question. I don't know if this question is for Chris or for Kimberly, or for anyone else, but so Chris, you outlined that this is, you guys still as state parks do not have a stance. This still needs to go before the Parks Commission. I guess I'm curious if it goes before the Parks Commission and changes substantially or changes at all, will it come back to Landmarks Commission? So Kimberly, I don't know if you can outline, like, are we looking at it now for a reason? Should we wait and should we table it and look in the future after state parks, who are the land managing agency, have a chance to look at it? I don't know if I'm making sense. It just seems like we're looking at it early before we know a final design. Is there still options? I see Chris wanting to talk. Chris, go for it.
Yeah, sorry. So it's a really good question, and we haven't been through this this process under our current rules before, but chickens and eggs abound. And our commission, for instance, will not want to look at it unless there's substantial feedback from all of the other authorities involved. So we essentially, we had to choose, who gets the first bite at the apple, who then chews on it and spits it back out. That's gross. I'm sorry. But yes, that's what I meant by if the design change is significant, and we'll need some feedback from you, Kimberly, on what that means. That will condition, our commission would likely condition its approval on, and if this changes significantly from what you presented to these prior bodies, the Capital Planning Commission, Salem Landmarks, and possibly others, you have to take it back to them so that you'll get a blessing from our commission, but it's contingent on continuing to work with the authorities. Maybe there won't be significant changes and this will be one and done for you, right? That would be beautiful. But if there are, for some reason, yes, we'll make sure that that's a condition that's placed on the applicant.
And right, so just to talk through this, and I can't think of another really good recent example where we've had this kind of scenario before, but essentially there is a path. So for example, if the multi-component memorial, the location of all the components and all the materials and design essentially stays the same as what's presented here tonight between now and when they have to come back, because they do have to come back and get building permits, and they choose that option B, which is the one for the Gold Star Memorial, then there is no additional historic design review required. Part of our internal process at the city, of course, is that for anything that's designated, then I look at the building permits to make sure it matches what was approved at Landmarks Commission. And if it does not match, then it is kicked back to you guys, either as a modification or, depending on how our table is, another type of historic design review. Now, if it is that option B, should you choose to adopt that, option A, condition, then as it states there, historic design review would be required. And that would either be again, depending on the change and the location and how it fits in with our table review before the Landmarks Commission or another type of historic design review administratively. Does that help, Tracy?
It does, yeah. I mean, I guess I would ask the question of, could we just provide verbal feedback tonight on what we're thinking? No, when you're shaking your head. No.
This is a
Okay.
land use application, so we're bound by, you need to take action because the land use application has been submitted. And of course, you do have the option to continue, but it has to be continued to a date certain. Because this is a public hearing that's been noticed and posted on the site, and there's a reasonableness in terms of making a decision.
Okay, thank you.
We will have a chance to question staff additionally here soon after the public testimony portion.
She's trying to follow.
We're in the second step of a 5-step process. Does anyone else have additional questions for the applicants? That being, Chris Havel, Steve Bates, or Mike, and I see Kelly. Commissioner Thomas has one.
Oh yeah, just real quick. When I was reading the application and looking at it, I was hoping there was those. I was going to ask you if there was more of a worldview or a piece of Vietnam in there, and then you explained that very well. So I appreciate that. And obviously the nurses thing is so basically I'm getting to a question about kind of expanding the representation of it, because I mean there's a lot of women in Vietnam, but they weren't just nurses. There were other professions. So is there a way to kind of expand that that demographic maybe a little bit there? I would hope that you would take a look at that.
If I may respond to that question, Commissioner, the nurses station is basically honoring the nurses, but as you said, there were a lot of women that served in Vietnam. Only 8 women died in Vietnam from all of the United States. But to honor all of the women who served, that area behind the nurses station where Mike showed you, there's a basalt wall and there's going to be some interpretive plaques there. That's going to honor, that area was going to be set aside to honor things such as the women who served. There were a tremendous amount of women that served from Australia. A lot of people don't realize that. Australia sent more women to Vietnam than any other country in the world. So we will be addressing, the women who served in Vietnam.
And we should also mention that other than beyond the physical nature of the memorial, there's in the project budget, we'll be developing an app that has a great deal of more detailed information and access to videos and things that as you walk around the memorial, you'll be able to gain more information. Not everything's going to be put on plaques and signs.
Good. Thanks, Guy. Yeah, I didn't, if it was in the presentation, I missed it. Sorry. Thanks for addressing that.
I have a similar question along Commissioner Thomas's question there, in that there's a lot of additional kind of plaques for these kind of other groups, the Purple Hearts, the Gold Stars. Is there any plan for continuation of those monuments, either going backwards or going forwards in time, as it's not static to just the Vietnam Memorial, but inclusive of all the wars?
Yeah, I would just say that the Purple Heart, the MIA, the POWs, are not plaques with people's names on them. They're commemorating all people from various wars who have been awarded the Purple Heart, and so there won't be a need to add more names to the plaque, if you will.
Thank you. I believe Commissioner Timbrook, you had another question.
Yeah, just one quick question about the bioswale. We've taken up a little bit more space with some of the pavers, to accommodate for event space. Is there like a size of like the bioswale? Is that like there to help like accommodate for some of the green space that's been taken away? And then is it like appropriate, like size wise for what was taken, if that makes any sense?
Yeah. I think there's a couple of functions and then an aesthetic. But the functions are, one, we want to make sure that any kind of impervious surface that we put that we have as part of the memorial that we can treat the runoff and maintain it on site. So there's a sort of a regulatory requirement. But there's also that if you know that part of the park and walk in it, it is deeply shaded. And so we want to make sure that that some parts of the memorial, there's some open air, if you will. And so that's why that's there. So we think it's sized appropriately to handle the runoff from the surrounding area. And physically, it creates these separate rooms with enough space and buffer in between them.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any further questions for the applicants? Okay, I'm going to move on real quick before you guys can think of anything else. I will now, is there anyone here representing the neighborhood association, Zach?
We do not have anyone present who is not representing the applicant tonight. So we didn't have anyone from the public show up either.
So the 3 public that had signed
Yep.
up are not here.
Nope, they are not here.
Okay, well, that's good. So I'm sorry, I'm moving on in my script then. No one else would like to testify because no one's here. Applicant doesn't need to rebut because there's been no rebuttal. And do the commissioners have any additional questions for staff? Commissioner Mulvihill.
This might be, I don't know if it's a dumb question or not, but was there a specific reason the animals were chosen to be placed in the spot where we're asking them to be removed? Or was that just like a place where we put them because it looked aesthetically pleasing?
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if Chris from Parks knows the history. That was back in 1991. I don't know the answer to that.
My recollection from the report is that it's because it was along the alignment and it was an open space. It was an available space that wasn't taken up by arboretum plantings, but I don't know exactly. So I'll make a note to check into that. And Kimberly, I can send you a follow-up to answer that question if you don't need it tonight.
Thank you. I was just wondering if it was intentionally chosen or more just from an aesthetic standpoint, it fit nicely there.
Yeah, my impression is it was the latter. And we do have a landscaping plan that before this topic came up, identified an alternate location that was shaded because it does get a fair amount of use from young children at the YMCA and from First Presbyterian Church across the street. And we wanted to make sure that that was preserved. It's one of the reasons the committee hasn't taken a position on it yet. They really wanted to see what the public comment was going to be, and that if nobody seemed to mind moving it to a nice shady spot under the trees that's already been picked out, then the committee would have no problem supporting that.
I have an additional question for you, Kimberly, too. So like the Parade of Animals tends to run parallel to the original path of the Capitol. It's parading towards the Capitol, and the proposed monument is actually running perpendicular. Is there concern about ruining the flow of that portion of the park? I know it's a small feature comparatively, but you're essentially the entire pathway is intended to be perpendicular, and we're creating or parallel, and we're creating a perpendicular portion of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you could choose to condition if you choose to condition the approval, if you did want to add something regarding the orientation. I don't disagree with you. That said, I don't, in terms of our applicable guidelines, it's if we do have a condition, it needs to ensure that it's better, it's meant to better meet one of the guidelines. So we just would have to, I'm sorry, can I share my screen? Hold on, I want to bring up the guidelines here so we know what we're talking about. Make sure I'm sharing the right one. Bear with me. Let's make it bigger. And of course, this isn't the full text of our guidelines, but essentially guideline F is relating to minimizing any impact on character defining features, and to G is that relating to no significant features are altered or obscured. So I think that should the commission agree with your assessment of the placement of that gold families, that it would adversely affect the alignment of the path, that's something that you certainly have the ability to add a condition.
Chair, could I comment?
I don't know. Where's Natasha?
Well, Lisa can weigh in, but I think it's okay because the hearing's still open. It's at your discretion.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. If I could, oh, I can't share my screen.
I can stop.
So I have okay, let me try it now. This might be helpful. So can you see the monument, the upper illustration? Yes. Okay. So what you'll notice is that this monument has a cutout of a soldier saluting, and the way that this is positioned on the plan is that this opening is right on axis to the state capitol. So yes, to the comment, very good comment. This is perpendicular to the axis, but it was put that way so that as you looked at the capitol, it lines right up with this part of the monument. So it wasn't, yeah, so that's the explanation.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, I thought I saw another hand from the commissioners. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone else that wishes to speak. I will now close the public hearing. No additional testimony will be accepted at this time without formally reopening the hearing. And I will entertain a motion if anyone cares to make one.
Oh, Madam Chair, I move to approve per staff recommendation and include condition 1 in this.
I'll second.
I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Schutte with staff recommendations of condition 1, seconded by Commissioner Timbrook. To your motion.
For one, the design's great, and I think it's even better with the with the additional, commentary there behind it. So thank you, Mike, for being on. I really appreciate it, and the thoughtfulness. And obviously, there's been, as a fellow designer, a lot of thought gone into that and some time spent. I think leaving this is just for us too. Leaving this with the condition, if it has to come back through again to deal with what you were talking about, Jamie, with the other statue, I think that's something that, that can get brought up again, depending on how much the design changes. It will still have to go back through recommendations. So I still feel that this is significant enough to catch any red flags or anything like that that we have, or concerns that we've talked about already tonight going forward.
Commissioner Timbrook.
Yeah, I'll echo what Russell said. It's a beautiful design, and you can tell that there's a lot of motion involved in it. And I think that the condition does leave it open, so that aspect of the design will come back through review if it does come up. So.
Any of the other commissioners wish to make a comment? Commissioner Mulvihill.
I will support the motion, although I would say that it doesn't seem to me that the animal sculpture placement was in any way, shape, or form thoughtful when it was put in, other than that's where it looked. So from a historical perspective, from my purposes, the last sentence of the condition doesn't make sense. I mean, I agree that it should be relocated on Capitol grounds, but it needing to come back to us to say yay or nay to the appropriate location on Capitol grounds seems somewhat meaningless to me when it wasn't an intentional placement to begin with. That's just my personal opinion, is that it doesn't seem like, from what we know at this point, we put the parade of animals intentionally there because it had some type of meaning and some type of intent. And I don't think it's associated historically with that. And so to make them come back when it wasn't an intentional placement per se seems unnecessary from my perspective. I won't object if everybody's in agreement, but it just seems unnecessary.
Do any of the other commissioners wish to make a comment? Commissioner Schwartz.
I would just speak to what Patty said. I think I may be less concerned about like how the parade of animals appears if it needs to be relocated versus like where it could go. Like, I think it would be really alarming to see like John McLaughlin with like a bunch of animals like marching up to him, and that might conflict a little. So I totally see your point. Like, yeah, maybe that wasn't very well thought out, but my concern would be more of like, where else are we going to put it on the Capitol grounds that it might create some like, what's going on? So, but I totally see what you're saying. That would just be my support, I guess, of that statement. So thank you.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Kerdevan.
Regarding Commissioner Moldahill's comment, I hadn't thought of it that way, and I think that's a really good point too, is if this is a monument for the children of Oregon, it's not exactly at a spot that's really welcoming for children. So if it, I'm not saying we should open a can of worms and say, find another place for it, but I think it's something maybe to point out that if there wasn't an intent for it to be on Capitol grounds, is there a more reasonable option or more welcoming option for the kids? But at the same time, though, if it is being used by groups of kids nearby, bringing kids to the property and then going through the history of all the different memorials and then having this there as well, maybe that is making it more welcoming for kids. So I can see both sides, but I do agree, Commissioner Mulvihill, that if that statement may be unnecessary.
I would think that, speaking to what the last three commissioners have been speaking about the Parade of Animals statue, it's less about the movement of the statute from where it's at. It's more of where it's going to move to, and continuing all the discussions we've had today regarding the flow of things through the park and the location of items and impacting other features by moving the statue. Every other thing on the plan doesn't involve movement of anything. That being moved somewhere else within the Capitol grounds means we're going to be impacting potentially another feature, which I would see the consideration for coming back before us for that kind of activity.
And if I'm not mistaken, sorry, depending on the application itself, right, Kimberly, it's either would be come before all of us or it would just be staff anyways, correct? So.
Okay. Commissioner Thomas, you also had something else to say?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to support, seeing the plan of where that's going to go and how it's going to fit in the future. I mean, a lot of things are done in that building that affect, all of us, including children. I think having, children represented somewhere on the grounds, in fact, even maybe in a larger capacity would be great.
Okay, I will just, I've seen this plan multiple times at this point. It's some very beautiful work. I love some of the symbology that's incorporated in this plan. I do continue to have concerns about the fuchsia waves. I know we talked about there not actually being fuchsia plants there, but the design is bisecting one of the waves that are a character defining feature of the park. And so that pathway C on the south end, I do have reservations about it. I do also understand your idea with the looking through the soldier to the state capitol, and it's a very neat idea. But I again have concerns about a perpendicular feature and something that's intended to be a viewscape. I know that what it does is it brings it out into focus, it brings it into contrast, it draws people's eye to it. But the idea, which I think is echoed by the Parade of Animals, is that this is the path to the Capitol kind of thing that's always been that venue. And I fear that putting up this kind of black wall in front of it, even though it has areas where you can look through it, will just kind of, I don't want to say the right word or the wrong word, but just kind of change the aspect of that original viewshed of the Capitol that we have there. So with that said, does anyone else have any comments? Okay. Does anyone else have any additional motions? We have a motion on the floor to approve with staff conditions. Okay. I will then call for a vote. All those in favor of moving forward with staff conditions, say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay.
No.
Did anyone choose to abstain?
Is it okay if I do a roll call for the vote since it is split, just to make sure we've got everyone accounted for?
Yep, go ahead.
Great. Commissioner Cottingham?
Aye.
Commissioner Kerdeman?
Aye.
Commissioner French?
No.
Commissioner Mobentu Timbrook?
Aye.
Commissioner Mulvihill?
Aye.
Commissioner Zimmerman?
Aye.
Commissioner Schutte?
Aye.
Commissioner Schwartz?
No.
Commissioner Thomas?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion passes. We will be moving on now to the action item.
Thank you for the time.
Aye.
Thank you.
It looks like the first action item is the terms and bylaws. Commissioner terms and bylaws. Kimberly, we've got rules that are coming up on due.
We do. Okay, so at our last meeting, not all of you were here. We discussed the amendment of our existing rules, which were last amended in 2017. And this came about because of a lack of clarity regarding term limits. So I just want to just give a kind of a broad explanation. So we essentially have two different types of rules for the commission. In one category, the Landmarks Commission actually has actual purview over, such as Rule 1 relating to officers, and another category which the HLC does not really have any purview over. It's simply meant to be a reference, so it can provide direction for like where to look. So these amendments before you tonight, which staff was directed to come back with last time, are that second category. So it's a reference. So similar, already existing under Rule 8, if you have the full copy of the rules in front of you, that refers to SRC 300 regarding how land use hearings should be conducted. The HLC can't change those. So just like you can't change how the city of Salem deals with term limits, but this is meant to clarify so that ideally, if all of you have your beautiful 3-ring binders, who uses those anymore, that we gave you when you were first appointed, you can look to these rules as a reference. So the proposed amendments are in red. They're on your screen and they're an action item tonight. Should you choose to move forward with the amendments, you can make a motion to adopt them. I do want to just clarify that both Natasha, who's not here tonight, and Lisa, who is, and she can speak to this if she wants to, these amendments are not necessary. They won't change whether they're enforced or not. It's just a clarification.
And Kimberly, just for the record, I'm on my 4th 3-inch binder. So I have everything.
Well done, Russell Gold Star.
Kimberly, I'd like to say that when I was starting to work on my RFP, I was like, where's my binder? Where's my binder? And I looked everywhere for it and I could not find it anywhere. But
oh no.
No, but at least I found my original plan, which was kind of part of what I was looking for too. So
as a parting gift, we can make you a new binder for posterity. Zach's crying. He's like, no, what is this binder?
So Kimberly, because this is an action item, we are looking for a motion.
Yes, correct.
To move forward.
Discussion, I think. And
yeah. Change the fact that Jennifer's going to have to retire in January.
You have no authority. I want to make that. Sorry, you can't. It doesn't. Sorry.
Nice try.
Well. All right, I will entertain a motion then, unless people have additional questions for staff.
Question.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yeah, on page 7 is just an accidental strike through or an old one or something that it's moving from 2 to 3 members require the A's.
Yes, probably an old version that I didn't catch.
Oh, okay, that's already done.
Please ignore. Yes.
All right.
I have a question. Is that, I'm filled my term, but can I come back? And if so, how long would I wait?
A year. So again, it's that same section.
Okay.
20C. It outlines all the.
Curious.
And also our. Yeah, you have to wait a year, but yes, you would be welcome back.
Except for me, I'm not welcome back. Right?
Of course you're.
I don't know if Jamie, you realize that my term is also ending. So.
I'm not going to be either because I started a month after you. So.
What?
Uh-huh. I think I started a partial term though, so I got an extra year or so.
Sound excited.
You should maybe look into that.
Well, we should, I don't know, this is a not written down rule, but when you leave, you have to find your replacement.
Oh.
I thought that was a rule.
I know a bunch of people who didn't do that, Kimberly, so.
I know.
For clarification, Jennifer, Jessica, and Russell, all of your current terms are ending, but Jennifer is the only one who has maxed their terms because Russell, you started halfway through, so you have to do 2/3 to not qualify.
Haha, Russell.
To qualify for a full term. So you
got me.
They can go one more term.
Exactly.
And Jamie,
because I started a month after Russell.
According to our records, your term ends next year.
Okay. I know I started a partial term.
I believe. I'll have to double check, but those are the 3 for this year.
Thank you, Zach.
Okay.
Zach's on it.
Seems like a Rule 13 type of item, right? You have to find your replacement.
You're right.
I have to say, though, this is my penultimate meeting as chair of the Landmarks Commission. I've got one more. And
and so you should start thinking again about who's going to replace you.
It's not my job. That's your job.
No, it's not. It's not my job. It's your commission job.
Jessica's saying not it. So.
Yeah. Thumbs on the table. If there's no other comments, I move to approve the updates and changes to the Landmarks Commission rules.
I will second.
I have a
for
motion
one of the last times.
I have a motion from Commissioner Schutte to approve with the recommended changes to text, seconded by Commissioner Timbrook. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Is that all you need from us, Kimberly, on that regard?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll just comment. I have when people's terms are in my binder.
Ah, Carol, also Gold Star.
Yes. If
Nice.
I didn't find her, how would I find anything?
Right?
To be real with you all, my binder, the only people still on it is Commissioner Schutte and Timbrook. Everyone else is.
I would have to say,
process.
I don't
That's-
know if I ever included like the handout that updated it. So when I do find the binder one day, it would have already been outdated.
All right. We are moving on to item 7, discussion items. Item A is the winter 2020 and 2021 work plan. Kimberly.
Okay, so, all right, so I'm going to go through just to refresh your memory. So as you recall, we've adopted or council, we went through and updated our historic preservation plan, which included annual work plans, and it's on track, all of it to be effective, I believe next week, Wednesday, Zach, yes? Oh, it's on a timer, oh dear.
Yes.
Is it next? It's Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday. So
I
we,
believe.
Kimberly, can I
Yes.
interrupt you for a second? Can we take a 5-minute break real quick? Because I
Oh,
think
of
we all thought
course.
this was only going to be an hour and it's going on a while. Can we take a 5-minute break real quick?
You can.
We're going to come back at 7:10, guys.
Hey, Kimberly, I have to bounce. Is that going to ruin quorum or anything?
There's no
We'll
more
still have
action
quorum,
items.
but-
Yeah, we still have quorum.
Well, then never mind.
We're gonna assign a lot of things to you though while
You
you're
guys
gone.
always do when
Like
I'm not
totally.
here.
Like I seriously have something.
Spring
for you.
newsletter written by Tracy.
Do you see this big circle with your name on it?
Didn't see that. Was that a book?
So totally. Yeah, you can leave and then we'll
improve something.
The circle will just get bigger.
it'll just get bigger.
Jessica, stop. I'll put your name next to mine. Yeah, I also, if you have some, I know we're still recording, apologies. If you have some time later in the next month, I would like to talk to you about something, listing something, which is like a personal goal. And I have an idea, but I wanted to check timelines with you, or if you have any ideas, but apologies, I have to roll. So
Right, cool.
I'll text you.
Okay, sounds
Bye
good.
guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Sorry, Kimberly, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I was like, I
No,
gotta
it's a
stop.
smart thing. I know. Need a break.
I've been drinking a lot of water. I was like, I'm not gonna make it through this.
You need to. No, it's fine.
I can't be the only one.
Something that I did not put on the agenda, and I don't know if we need to talk about it, is the winter newsletter. I think we're good to go on it. I don't know if we need to do a quick check-in on it or not.
It's probably best to just remind people of what they agreed to.
Okay.
I didn't agree to anything, did I?
No, we only have one maybe agreement. Because we do have some guest writers for this one. So we've had 2 Toolbox Grant recipients agree to write small portions about their projects that they've worked on.
That's great.
So that's exciting.
That's great. Kimberly, I know we tend to do things for outgoing commissioners. Is there any possible thing we can do for, she's here.
Is she back? Yes, we
Jennifer, anyway, we like maybe start looking into ways to do that before next meeting.
What do you think, Zach? Thoughts?
I haven't done one before, so.
A virtual card, like what we're doing, right? Like that virtual card.
I know that we did one for Dennis Griffin, who retired. Like everyone could go in and record their little message to him, and then he got the stack of messages or something. I don't know how they did it, but I can maybe figure out and send it to you.
We do something. It's virtually like signing a virtual card, like a PowerPoint, and you can record, right? Can't you record sound thingies on that?
I
don't
am
know.
not sure, but I'm sure I could figure it out pretty quickly.
Okay.
We have
And then in the past, we've
Zach for figuring that out.
we can designate her as a historic landmark if you want.
She's not there yet. Give her a few more years.
Okay.
At least a decade.
That's
She's
just
got at
mean.
least a decade, I'm guessing.
I was gonna say now we'll really find out if she's listening in.
Yeah, right.
I think, yeah, this is just our first retirement from the commission since this whole thing started. So, and will you forward me the applications that we have?
Yes, I can do
Yes,
that.
we have the. Do you want to check first about the Kaiser guy though?
Yeah, I will check.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can just send me what you have and I'll look through them. And then if someone needs to be dropped out, that's fine. I just want to get a head start because it's probably going to take me a couple weeks to actually look at it the way I go. So.
And Zach, are you able to change the vote so Jamie can sign it?
I've already done that and emailed it to
Oh,
Jamie.
whatever. Awesome. Jamie, sign it.
I'm on it. Sorry, what? I'm on it.
You just have to respond with whether or not you approve the document I sent you.
What if I don't like it?
Gosh.
You just have to respond with whether or not is it an accurate document to what the commission voted on.
Yeah, okay.
There you go.
Wait, that probably means I should open it, right?
Yeah.
Hi, Jennifer. You got some dinner.
Pasta.
Is it good? Did they do a good side dish with it?
There was some peas and I just dumped them on top of it. But I like peas with my fettuccine Alfredo, so.
A good pea is a pea in the trash.
You know what I have to say? My daughter still loves to eat frozen peas because I used to give her, she would eat like suck on frozen peas and stuff. Like when she was smaller, like not choking age, but she loved frozen peas and she actually still likes frozen peas.
Okay, we are at 7:10. Kimberly, I believe everyone is back. Commissioner Schwartz is now absent. I believe she had to leave. Can we note that for the record?
Will do.
And other than that, all the rest of the commissioners are present at this time. So Kimberly, please proceed. Sorry to interrupt you earlier.
That's okay. It's been so long. So we adopted our historic preservation plan and council reviewed it at their council meeting, and it should be effective on next Wednesday. Is that the 25th? I believe that's where we left off. I'm guessing on the date, Zach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that right? Great, cool. So we have 57 actions over 10 years, and you can see the implementation plan there on your screen. And we have individual work plans, and we have a total, if you recall, of 6 goals. And this kind of just shows you how the actions are associated with one of the goals here. And this is the one we've done the most work on recently regarding streamlining our historic code. But tonight, I want to talk through in more depth about our specific work plan that we have for fall, winter, and also for next year for 2021 to get you thinking about it. And then further, so you can start thinking about how that will affect your work, your subcommittee work. So currently on the screen here, I have 4 subcommittees identified, and hopefully I'm not forgetting any. And I've got all the names. I have a list that I found, Zach, which I'm hoping it's the most recent one. And given our ambitious work plans, I think that I would recommend that we create 2 more subcommittees, but that's part of what I wanted you guys to discuss and consider tonight. I'm going to go in pretty good detail of the winter work plan and kind of give you a status report about where we're at. We've actually completed quite a lot of work, but then I'm also highlighting what still needs to be done. So you can see here on your screen, we've got the first goal relating to improving public outreach and community education. And I know that the subcommittees are supposed to give their update here in a little bit, and I think Kelly can talk more in depth about what the work we've been doing on that, but I'll just briefly summarize that we do have a grant. It's a Heritage All-Star grant through OPRD, the Heritage Commission, which is a non-competitive grant for $3,000 that we're eligible to apply for because Salem is an all-star community, and that can help pay for a walking tour brochure, which is our #1 action item under this goal. So Kelly has already been helping, and he's agreed to help with the grant application, which is due here in a couple weeks. And Andy's already been doing a good job, skipping down now to strategy 3, which is our social media presence. That's been an ongoing thing that he's been working on, so I've highlighted his name. You can see under strategy 4, which is providing technical training. So a lot of these actions are related to just creating digital resources. And that's, I was joking a little bit, but I had identified Tracy as someone who could help with that. But of course, any one of you who have an interest in that you would just be working with staff to help us pull that together and update our website. They're just FAQs and brochures, essentially. Also included in there is coordinating a homeowner forum meeting, which was something that we're probably, of course, going to have to do virtually. But if you have an interest in assisting with that, please let us know, or we can just give it all to Tracy. And then moving on to goal 2, the items circled in green, we've already completed. So again, we did a lot of work on our code amendments. That's a majority of the things that you can see here in green, but we also have under strategy 2, education about those code improvements that we still need to complete. And again, just providing education about our code. So staff is already going to work on that, but it would be nice to have some support so that that staff person could just have someone to run it by, so we can have a support person. So moving on, again, under goal 4, we already are having our compliance coordination meetings, our roundtables. We did celebrate Archaeology Month, and we already have our map, so that section is complete. We've done a lot already on that. That's so cool. And I've highlighted Carol on strategy 2, which is encouraging preservation of cultural landscapes, because Carol's already on that advisory group for the Bushes Pasture Park plan. I don't, again, I put a question mark because I didn't want to assume, but Carol, you can weigh in whether that is something, I mean, you're continuing to go to those meetings, but we're also needing to develop some FAQs, and again, providing support to staff on that. That would be really helpful. Goal 5 under encouraging sustainable practices. That's again some code amendments, and we've already completed those. And then the last one, goal 6, I guess I threw Tracy on that one and she's gone, but this is about survey and designation. So I did add Jamie and Andy, because not only are we wanting to identify areas to survey, but we're also wanting to utilize social media to educate the public about that. So before I move on to the discussion of the 2021, do you guys want to stop and discuss this, or do you want me to just complete my entire presentation and then you can discuss?
I have one question real quick, Kimberly, and that's that while we were talking about new subcommittees, we tend to do that in January. Is the idea that if we agree to new subcommittees, that will still not happen until January, or are we going to be doing that tonight?
I don't think, I mean, there's no right or wrong way to do it. We are at a very interesting point right now because, you know, once our new preservation plan becomes effective, we have a work plan identified for fall under this new plan. And so you can still do the work without having that formal subcommittee. And really, you know, given that it's the end of November and we have 1 month in December, it's perfectly fine if you want to wait until December or until January. However, that said, you know, we're going to continue to work on this stuff because we have a very ambitious 10 years ahead of us, and we want to be able to get through as much as we can. And these items were essentially identified as low-hanging fruit. So
sure, it's not stopping anyone from working on it. I know that we know Commissioner Timbrook is leaving after December, and we'll have a new commissioner. Commissioner Schwartz isn't here, although I love to volunteer her for things.
Yeah.
It might be a better discussion when everyone is around in January or something like that to officially put, but subcommittees can get started on things if they want to, maybe.
Well, let me go ahead and finish just talking
Please do.
about all of it so you can kind of get a sense of the big picture. So this is the 2021 work plan. What the colors mean. Blue are actions that were winter, essentially, the 2020. Green are 2021. And the red star ones are brand new things that we've never done before. So a majority of the actions we've already been doing projects like this, so they won't be brand new. But some of these are new and require some new initiatives. I just want to point out a few of them. So a couple of the really big ones are related to the cultural landscape goal. And we're wanting to create a new celebration of Historic Landscape Architecture Month. We've never done that before. That's in April. And then also offering a Cultural Landscape Award. And then under Goal 5, which is Sustainable Practices, working on establishing a Historic Preservation Green Fund. So that's new. So we have our Toolbox grant. And so I just wanted to point out those are new and pretty big projects to bite off. The way that we structured this, though, is that if we don't get something accomplished, like in 2021, it just rolls over to the next year. So understanding our current climate, it's quite challenging to get new money. But that is what we've identified in our work plan. So I think that definitely January, we would need to make some decisions about this. Ideally, it would be great to do it at our next meeting in December, just in terms of making decisions about our work plan. We have adopted it as part of our preservation plan in order to make your lives easier in theory, but you do also have the ability to amend moving forward if you need to. So this is just it's not an action item tonight, it's just a discussion item and something for you to think about. So if I'm gonna go back here. If anybody that I've named here that is still here wants to, so Tracy's not, and Andy's already ongoing, and Kelly, I think you can talk about it. I guess the big question is for Carol in terms of that. You're continuing to serve on that board, and if you want to assist with some FAQs, that would be really helpful. Maybe letting me know.
Yeah, no, I'll chime. I'm happy to. You can take the question mark off. I'm happy to keep.
Great.
Keep being in that, as well as I know it's looking at the 2021 work plan and what those actions would be or committee, but then kind of I'd be happy to be on a committee or working with the things under Goal 4 on the new plan as well.
Great, thank you. So I'm just going to quickly go back here. So what we'll probably do for our December meeting and include ahead of time this list of future committees, and you can be thinking about which one you want to serve on. If you want to add more, remove some, that way we can hit the ground running in January when it's time to actually adopt our work plan and have committees lined up to actually do that work. And I'll just leave this up because I think the next thing on the agenda is the subcommittee report.
Does anyone else have any questions though about the new proposed subcommittees and whether or not they think 6 committees or 4, stick with the 4, or everyone's okay?
I'm sorry, I don't know if you can see my hand.
Oh, sorry. I think you were just off my screen.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I hate Zoom. I feel like I'm interrupting and I don't mean to be, so I'm sorry. I don't know if this is possible. I don't necessarily think to talk about it today, but when we talk about the committees, can we talk about how often they actually meet and what we're actually accomplishing? Because I feel like sometimes we have really good ideas as organizations and we create subcommittee after subcommittee. And the reality is half the time I feel like we come to this meeting and the subcommittees have nothing to report. And I don't know if that's because we're not working or because we have these goals and we just are busy and don't have time to do it. But before we create new subcommittees, can we analyze whether or not we're actually fully utilizing the committees we have in place? Or if we still need that. I mean, if we need new ones, that's fine, but maybe we don't need old ones. I'd just like that to be part of the conversation.
Commissioner Kurtman.
I was actually thinking very similar thing. I'm very partial to the proposed new subcommittee number 6. But I was just looking at some of the old ones and kind of wondering if maybe we could combine them or make them. I'm kind of on the same page. Like I feel like I'm not sure if we're being as productive in the subcommittees. So what does that look like then? Removing some or combining them or retasking them? I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just feeling guilty for leaving Kelly all alone again in the subcommittee, but I just wanted to point out the obvious that I'm very supportive of number 6.
Yeah, and I think a big part of this is that subcommittees are very dependent on who's a part of that subcommittee. They're not led by the city, they're led by us. And so if we're not committed to meeting and doing things outside of this time, then they're not going to be doing anything. So I know that it would be nice if we knew exactly when each subcommittee was meeting, but it's very dependent upon who is participating in it. And so I think also something we should consider is that if it makes more sense to have just one person as part of the subcommittee, because that's an easier way to get things done, that might be something to really think about in this next, as we lead up to picking our subcommittees, is that maybe a subcommittee of one isn't always the worst idea.
Can I offer some insight? So for example, number 2, the current number 2, economic and recognition. So that subcommittee in particular does a lot of work just 1 month of the year. So that's around Historic Preservation Month and getting the awards together, but also we are wanting them to start doing more work because of our photo contest. So I will tell you that given the ambitious actions that we've identified in our work plan, staff cannot do this without your help. And you're absolutely right. It doesn't make sense to have a subcommittee that never meets and doesn't have clear goals. And I do think that there are, and I think you all know who works really hard. Like Andy does a great job on the social media consistently, and Kelly's doing a great job on the promoting that. Doing the liaison work with the culturals, but it is really your guys' decision. So I do think it's important that you guys decide, and it may make more sense to wait until we do have the new commissioner, but that won't be till January. So I think you guys have experience and know what works, and especially virtually, maybe it's easier, maybe it's harder. I don't know, to set up those meeting times, but in terms of what staff can do, we can tell you what we need help with, but if we don't get that help, then things just simply won't get done. So
Yeah, and certainly some commissions have heavier lifts than other, or some subcommittees have heavier lifts than others. But I would also encourage that if you're having trouble getting your subcommittee off the ground, city staff is available to meet and discuss and get you started in some way. And so if you want to do a lunch meeting with Kimberly and Zach or something like that to get some initiative off the ground, I really encourage that moving forward. Kimberly, right? Yeah? You want to meet with people on lunch?
Yeah, I'm happy to meet. And it might be that this might be this new plan, because we have very specific action items, might be easier for people to either sign on and say, hey, I can help with that, like developing the FAQs, than this sort of broad kind of vague help with public outreach and education. I mean, clear and objective, more specific was the goal of the work plans. So
Commissioner
maybe that'll
Thomas.
be easier.
Yeah, just a thought occurred to me. I mean, we've got 6 subcommittees and 6 goals. I mean, maybe to just kind of restructure what each one of them does and have the subcommittees align with the goals. I mean, you'd have more people. You wouldn't have a committee of 1 on public outreach and education. You might even divide that some more, and then, but maybe a committee of 1 makes sense on, financial support, or maybe that one, it doesn't need a committee at all. I don't know. Because a lot of the leads are just staff, but maybe that's a thought, is align the work, align the subcommittees with the goals. Just a thought.
And if it would be helpful, staff can bring back for the next meeting, a number of action items associated with each goal, so it can be clear. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way. What specifically we need help with. So again, it's not going to be everything. So for example, for 2021, we have 19 actions, and some of them we don't need any help at all. We'll do that, most of it on our own. But we could come back with a more specific suggested committee list with suggested actions for each committee, and then you can gnaw on that and chew on that and decide if that's going to work for you, or if and maybe committees is not even the right way to think about it. Maybe it's just commissioners willing to help with these action items.
I think that's a great idea though too, is that if you know exactly what you're responsible for, like I think the economic incentive group was always, or not economic, the outreach group or whatever, whoever was in charge of the photo contest and the preservation day stuff, like that was always a clear group. You have tasks, exactly what you're
in a specific time frame. Yeah.
And when it's going to happen. And so I think that will be helpful as people decide, hi Marcus, what they're going to do in their or how they're going to volunteer in these groups.
Yeah, because it's kind of overwhelming if you've just got a broad goal with no specific like tasks. It's difficult.
Yeah. So if we
so we can come back
to work on that and come back to us.
Absolutely. That's fine.
And
then it can be like the newsletter where you get assignments.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any other comments before we move on? Okay. Subcommittee reports. I'm just going to call on each one. If it's involved with the subcommittee or just general preservation, please feel free to participate however you want. I'm going to start with Commissioner Mulvihill.
I don't have anything to report.
Okay. Commissioner Cottingham.
No, yeah, I don't have anything to report today.
Commissioner Timbrook.
In terms of subcommittee, nothing. I just wanted to throw this out there about something that I saw about something that was happening in Pendleton with the Pendleton Historic Preservation Commission and their Public Works Department. I don't necessarily think we should be taking like a group, like some kind of group statement or whatever, but just if anybody wanted to reach out, they have a big, I'm not familiar with Pendleton, just so you know. They have a big public works project going on to do some kind of like road expansion on Southeast Byers Road but they want to reinstall and recreate a Confederate soldier's names along the road. So just thought I'd throw that out there, that I can send you all a link if you want about it. So if you want to send your own personal statement, there's only 4 people on their landmarks commission, but I feel like it's more of a public works aspect. But you know, if you wanted to make your thoughts known in Umatilla County and in Pendleton, you should. And that will be my last statement.
Thank you, Commissioner Timbrick. Commissioner Kurtman.
Yep, thanks very much to the City of Salem staff for getting the Oregon Archaeology Month postcard out. I know, yay, we did it. I know a lot of it was delayed because of me, but we still got it out, and I feel like it's a good 2020 lesson too. I also learned a lot about how to do that sort of thing, stuff I didn't realize you had to do. So yeah,
don't do it.
No, actually, I think it was fine. It just was like, after talking to John Pauly about it, it's like, oh, I have to do that too. Oh, well, I better do that. So, anyways, it was successful. It was sent out. Thank you very, very much, Kimberly and Zach, for all of your patience and getting that together. And Kimberly and Zach will have to follow up on the invoicing for that too. So anyways, I attended the Section 106 talk for the CLG workshop conference meeting thing. That was the only bit I could fit in my calendar, unfortunately. It was, of course, the one that I probably needed to attend the least. But I have some feedback on it though, so I was curious if anyone else caught that talk. I know Kimberly, you did, because you asked some really good questions. Oh, and Jamie, I just figured you had to be there, Jamie. So.
Did you get a survey?
I was there.
Yes, Curry sent a survey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just today.
Okay, yeah. Yep, then that's what I got. I will send my feedback for that. But yeah, other than that, I don't have any subcommittee updates.
Okay. Commissioner Thomas.
Yeah, we the last meeting I reported we were taking a break with the tourism thing, and then suddenly out of nowhere, Kimberly says, hey, we have a grant opportunity. So we got back up real quick, and we're pushing to the goal line of November 1st. Is it due on Monday or Tuesday? November 30th?
December 1st.
Okay, so we got one day of padding there. So Kimberly's getting that over to me, and then I'm going to get it over to we're going to all coordinate to get this grant done and get this tour thing up and running. What's the timeline in the grant, Kimberly? I don't remember.
So the work needs to be done by the end of the fiscal year, so end of June.
End of June. Okay. So, and then we'll kick it off in like January, right?
Yep.
Like yeah.
Yep.
So
about 6.
We're back, and here we go. So we'll keep you apprised at the next meeting. We did talk about it being a multimodal thing, multi-generational, and we're working to the suggestions that y'all mentioned. What? Oh my gosh, that was like 9 or 10 months ago now. But yeah.
We'll be back. There'll be surveys.
Okay. Commissioner Zimmerman.
Well, I had some bigger plans, and then some other things kind of got in the way. The city's historic photos website was down in October. I don't know if it was for maintenance or what. I talked with the library, and they said they had IT on it, and it was down for a couple of weeks. So that kind of slowed up some of my plans because I couldn't look for any of the photos I wanted to use for some social media stuff. but luckily they finally got that up and running. I checked a couple of weeks ago and it was back up, so that was great. My fear was it was just kind of gone because it just kind of went to this generic URL. But so that was good that was taken care of. I got the fall newsletter out there on social media. I figured out how to mess with it on WordPress, and then I've been having a lot of issues with the new Facebook for the HLC page. It's been kind of a headache to kind of get in there, and I'm still trying to figure out the best way to do it. I've kind of got a back way to kind of get in there and do the updates that need to get done. But the good thing was the newsletter's out there. I figured out how to do that going forward, so that should be easy. I had a couple other posts up there. I plan on doing a few more things before the end of this month. An interesting historic photo that I saw for Thanksgiving of a turkey processing operation that used to be in town that I'll probably toss out there with some information about where it used to be. And so I've got a few of those kind of things kind of coming down the pipes heading into later on this year. I'm kind of coming up with a list of some things that I can do a quick hit kind of research on and find a photo and throw those out there. It seemed like those get the best reach from things, having those kind of opportunities if people see older photos, or that always seem to kind of elicit a response or a link or something. People respond to it, or they'll share it themselves. So I've got a few of those things coming down the pipes as well within the next few weeks. So if you're not following us on social media, start doing so you can give me some advice or some suggestions as we move forward with what you think might work, or what you think's kind of fallen flat. Let me know.
Andy, I'd like to say I kind of feel like my mom, how like your parents are sometimes like your first people to like your Facebook posts, even if they don't really read it. But like I see something that says Salem Historic Landmarks Commission, I'm like, ooh, like super dorky, but I just whatever.
I'll put your name in there to see if you read it in the future somewhere. I'll just slide it in.
I will.
Are you partnering with local businesses that are housed in historic buildings? I know that they're doing a ton of social media outreach during the pandemic to try to push things out. Or can we partner with them to not only get more likes on our page, but to push their stuff as well? Or is that against the rules? Sorry, Kimberly. Natasha, Shelby.
I don't think there's a rule against it. I don't know anything about how to do that.
Yeah, I
like a conflict of interest type.
Promoting certain businesses over others. I don't know, but there's a lot of. I know there's a lot of businesses.
Paddy's the attorney. Paddy's the attorney. She might know.
So I cannot give this commission legal advice. We have an attorney for that. What I would say is I'm not familiar with Salem's ordinances or policies. There might be something under the state ethics statutes. No, that a statute is applicable to city officials themselves. So us in our personal capacity, not to the organization itself. So the organization could say take a $150 gift certificate from a business in a historic building to help promote their historic features on our website, and it would be fine, but an individual commissioner could not do that. That would be a violation. So the state ethics statutes is to us as individuals, not to entities themselves. But I don't know if Salem has any policies. That's a question for Natasha when she returns.
But that's something to consider. I know a lot of our downtown businesses are hurting, and the best way to kind of keep them alive in this pandemic is to help promote them. And so I know we have probably less followers than they do, but cross-pollination is the only way to grow the Facebook page too.
That's right. Well, and they're doing a lot to like try to encourage, like they really dig their historic location too. So, we have to appreciate that they really like that. And that's kind of what we want to encourage too. So.
Yep. Right. I'm just thinking anything in the McGillcrest building or, Pear or anything in the Gray building,
Reed.
Especially is like the Reed. Absolutely. Yep.
Watching them all close down again. So
yep.
Anything we can do to help them.
Another thought, I know it's not in Salem, but it might be solidarity is with a lot of the cities that have been devastated by the wildfires this season who lost significant structures. My guess is some of them lost some pretty important structures, particularly those in the Santiam Canyon fire area. it might be just to kind of show some solidarity for them. And because it is an issue that people are tracking statewide, it might not to be the obnoxious lawyer who cares about things like that, but it might increase likes if if we were, putting stuff out in support of communities that did lose historic buildings themselves due to the wildfires this season. I think that could be interesting because I think people are tracking it and trying to do things to help them as well right now.
I think I did see something in the news too one time. I mean, about Phoenix or Talent, because they do have a historic district. I just remember seeing something about it. They kept going, historic Phoenix, historic Talent, and part of it was on the National Register. So it's really a great idea, Patty.
Not smiling at me, Jamie, are you?
I know a little bit too. I'm sure you know also as well. I've been in charge of some of the wildfire responses. I'm sure Jessica's been tuned into some of it too. I do know that I don't have the numbers specifically in front of me, so this is a little bit of a guesstimate. 3,000 archaeological sites were affected by the fires. 74, I believe, historic buildings. Most of those in Southern Oregon, comprised of the Talent, Phoenix, Ashland, Medford area, which did burn through. If you look at a map of it, one side of the edge of the block burned through the Talent, Phoenix area. So they did lose a number of structures, but most of their downtown was still left intact. 4 historic cemeteries, and 1 organization that houses collections were all affected by the fires. So there's quite a number of resources, obviously the most being archaeological because it was a lot of forest land that burned, but there's not an insignificant number of buildings, historic cemeteries that will be affected by the fires in the coming years. And that's, again, only the places that were within the fire perimeter. As far as additional damage due to heat, smoke, things like that outside the fire affected tax lots, we still don't know yet. Jessica, you have anything else?
Oh, I was just going to add, and we have no idea as far as archaeological stuff, the areas that have never been looked at. So, that's just stuff that we already knew locations and statuses of that were damaged beforehand. But, FEMA is in action, and ODOT is doing all the building cleanup. And so the cultural resources team through ODOT and FEMA and a hired consultant are all working on that.
Have we not had a meeting since the fires broke out? Is this the first one?
Oh, we have.
We have? Okay.
We had one. We just didn't have a reason to talk about it.
Okay. Yeah. So in the end,
reasons,
so Jessica knows
it was
this.
just too soon.
Jessica knows this, but FEMA is technically in the main authority, and Oregon DEQ does a lot of the on the ground work. All of that essentially has been delegated to ODOT, and ODOT is Jessica is taking the lead on doing all that work for the state. And so they are deploying huge crews across the state to work on not just tree felling, but cleanup and debris cleanup and preventing erosion and things like that.
Replanting trees. My husband's been
phase is just erosion control.
That's what my husband's been working on. ETART.
Yep.
ETART. ETART.
Yep.
So there's a lot going on.
There's a lot.
It's a lot. Nobody really realizes it. They see the fire and you just think that, but you don't. I don't think people always, because the media in a way, you don't see the ripple effects and then the long-term effects and stuff like that. So
yeah, so the initial phase was just the burn control, but the second phase is removing hazardous materials, stopping ash from entering the river and poisoning the stream, and then preventing erosion. And then we get on to actual demolition cleanup, houses that have been burned, removing them and things like that. So they're still in the initial phases of stopping ash from getting in the river, I believe, Jessica, and picking up batteries and propane tanks and things like that from houses, as far as I know. And then the tree felling continues.
Yeah, most of the hazmat stuff. But as far as social media that goes, though, I'm not as familiar, but I know ODOT tends to put out a lot of videos for updates and things like that. I don't know if it would be lazy, or I don't know if we have to make our own content to go on the social media, or if we don't want to go down that road of just sharing other people's content. I'm not sure, but
I was thinking more superficial when I made the suggestion, and that like if there was so I mean I care about the fish and the archaeological impacts, but personally I think most people are going to be interested in if there was like a historically designated church or a storefront or a portion of a downtown that was destroyed, a before and after picture, a tagline about what that community is doing, and if you're interested how you can help. I agree the wildfires have lasting impacts on all different levels, but I think the average member of the public is probably going to be more intrigued by this really cool 150-year-old building that housed this thing was lost, and the community is trying to restore it or plans to do something with it, would be an actual social media post that might gain some traction as opposed to other stuff.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, here's a field that had flakes in it that burned.
Yes. I think that there's lots of people who find that fascinating, but I don't think the majority of people do. No offense.
No, absolutely agree. The visual impacts, and that's what social media is, lives off of, or visual impacts. So seeing a structure 1 minute and it's gone, or seeing the devastation of a structure, absolutely. I completely agree with you.
I would also, the devastation photos are showing up on Facebook, but Andy, I would recommend then getting in touch with Oregon Heritage because they are collecting success stories. I believe they have a whole series of the stuff that they did to preserve the barn and the covered bridge in Vito that was about to burn down, and the whole city was out there trying to cover it in flame retardant. So there's stuff and they're collecting it. So
that's such a cool video.
It's just kind of across the board. Like the city recorder for the city of Detroit, when the fire started getting bad, she packed up every single record she could from their city hall to try and save every possible historical record and document they had, and just drove with them. She drove with a band full of records instead of taking her own personal stuff because she was worried about the legacy of the city. Like that kind of stuff, I think, has meaning to a broad spectrum of people.
Yep. There's some great stories for sure. Okay, Andy, you have work to do. Thank you for sharing. Commissioner Schutte, you're next.
Okay, I'll keep it quick. I have nothing committee-wise to report, but I did want to mention I was down for a site visit yesterday at 990 Broadway. Anybody who's been by there and seen, they've got some dirt work going. They're getting ready to pour foundations for the new building on that Jason Lee site. And Kimberly, if you're interested, they did dig up the kitchen sink, and it's sitting out on the corner, right? So they did save it. Literally the kitchen sink. So,
Ross mentioned he was
he said
there
Ross.
today.
Yeah, Ross had gone down or something like that, and it's sitting over on the curb. But I thought it was pretty funny.
He says he's got some stuff to give me. I didn't realize there was an actual kitchen sink. Great.
Yeah. But I saw a couple of bricks sticking out of the ground where they had left, dug around and stuff like that for the footings. But yeah, it was really interesting that they had ran into, of all things, the kitchen sink.
I love it.
That's all I got.
That's good. I like that. As far as the committee has been concerned, this entire year we've been stuck in COVID. It's either been the rainy season or COVID, so we've been not able to designate anything. Commissioner Schwartz and Commissioner Timberg and I are working on the MOA for the library. We believe that it was not officially put into the MOA that the City Hall would be listed, and so we're going to pursue I believe a listing for the City Hall and the Plaza as our next piece of work that we're going to do.
Are you going to do it?
Volunteer. That will be.
Are you going to write it?
Commissioner Schwartz, who just got something listed, is going to do most.
Is that what she's going to talk to me about?
She offered. I have the proof, but I offered to help.
Nice.
We're supporting her.
Great.
She just got something listed, so I feel like she's really energized and excited about it. So
she's going to do the work.
She's going to push forward. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to go out in a group with the COVID times, but I will say that I attended the CLG workshop. I get to play a little bit of double dipping in that I work for the SHPA who puts on the CLG workshop, and so I get to do it as staff time and as commission time. And there was I don't know, Kimberly, if you want to talk about the DLCD middle housing rule. I don't think it really affects us terribly. We don't have a lot of those infill kind of projects happening.
It does affect us, and I was on the rulemaking committee, so during my report, I can speak a little bit to that.
Okay.
But yeah.
And there was a really good presentation from Restore Oregon about an historic resource inventory toolkit about ways to help do survey. So Commissioner Timbrook and Schwartz and I will be discussing that as we continue to do survey. We were called out during the CLG sharing part as requested information about how we worked on our preservation plan. And so I provided that because
I wasn't there.
Gone. She left.
I had another conference, which I'm going to talk about.
And they just said, Salem, can Salem talk about it? Salem. And so I stepped up and talked about our preservation plan. I will say too, also that Robert Olgain talked about they are doing a multiple property designation for African American resources, and then WPA Works Progress Administration CCC things. So if we know of any resources in the Salem area, there is an online tool to submit those to them so they can be included in the MPD, which is a tool that we use in the future to nominate stuff to the National Register. And then the last thing was the 106 thing, which just Commissioner Kurteman talked about, which kind of talks about how CLGs can interact, which is stuff we've already done before regarding looking at MOAs, looking at the National Register nominations and offering mitigation and things like that. So that's it for me. Anyone else have anything, or we're going to move on to the last item? What?
Zach, did Zach want to jump in about the newsletter before I?
Oh, newsletter. I'm sorry, newsletter.
I can do that. Yeah, we didn't put it on the agenda.
I have it written here, but I wrote it off to the side. Sorry.
We did get some guest writers for the newsletter. So we're going to have two of our Toolbox grant recipients writing. I've already received one of their portions, and then the other one said they were going to do it. So hopefully we get that by our deadline. And then the only thing I needed to check in on still was Commissioner Mulvihill.
It's not done. I would like to tell you it's going to get done, but it's what, Thursday, and I've worked a 65-hour week. So I would just say you should count on that not getting written.
Okay, that is fine. So we will need to potentially fill that spot. I don't think that we don't need to fill that spot, but I would like to fill that spot to have a robust winter edition. If anyone has a recommendation for that, if anyone was struck with inspiration, it is National Novel Writing Month. If anyone has been working on that, maybe.
What was the piece, Zach? Can you remind us?
Commissioner Mulvihill's, or?
Yeah, so what was the piece? Yeah.
Was on women's suffrage.
Okay, so we're looking for an opinion piece kind of thing, general history kind of thing. I'm gonna nominate Commissioner Schwartz to do
it. Okay. See if she bites. What's
really
the deadline, Zach?
Our deadline is December 9th. So we have a little bit of time, but not, time is relative. We don't have that much time.
Relative. Let her know and see if she has time.
I can reach out to her tomorrow.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you, Zach.
And that's it for the newsletter.
Well, thank you for pursuing those outside groups to write for us, because I know as much as we love to write stuff, it's sometimes pulling teeth to get it out of us. Me, 100% the worst of everyone. So thank you for that. All right, we're going to move on to item 8. Last thing, Historic Preservation Officer report. Kimberly.
So I have slides, just like 3. So everyone, it's okay. Don't forget. So today, and look at that sun and blue sky. So the mayor presented our volunteers for the Jason Lee project. I have it right here, the At Your Service award. You can't see it, it's glass. So you can see there's Professor Scott Pike from Willamette and also Ross Smith from Stantec Consulting there. So that was pretty exciting to receive that. We had 30 volunteers, and they worked through in terrible conditions, both bad weather and this was COVID. So they deserve a lot of recognition. And the several commissioners already talked about this CLG conference. So House Bill 2001, the only thing I want to point out with middle housing, and again, I've been meeting over the last year, a little bit longer, it feels like, on crafting these rules so that they, the process, the rules are clear and objective with regards to what happens when there's a resource within a historic district or individually listed that an owner or developer wants to either adaptively reuse for this middle housing or do infill development. And essentially what would happen is that in a city like Salem, the existing historic design review criteria would apply. There are certain jurisdictions in Oregon that do not have an adopted historic ordinance, and they do have National Register designated properties in their jurisdiction. And so we talked about and crafted language to ensure that those properties would be protected. The intent is to not prohibit the development of middle housing. As you are probably aware, there is a big need for affordable housing in the state. It's a bit of a crisis, and certain groups tend to use historic designation as a weapon against allowing any infill. And the goal was to be able to craft these rules so that, not to say that it would never happen, but that hopefully it wouldn't be easy to have that happen. So and Sean was at the conference and he did a good job giving a presentation. I do have a copy of these presentations. I think both Jamie and Jessica also got copies of the actual PowerPoint. So if anyone's interested in more information, I'm happy to send it to you. And I have listed on here, City of Canby talked about their historic preservation planning process. I'm glad that they went through that. That gal, Carol, she came to talk to me. They're relatively new in establishing their program and they don't really have, as I understand it, dedicated preservation staff. So I suggested that they utilize CLG money to do a preservation plan. So I'm glad that they did that. I'm sorry I missed that part of it. And then as both Jamie and Jessica talked about, Sarah and Kurt did a presentation about Section 106. The only thing I want to mention about Section 106 and CLG engagement is that it's often a very complicated process and it's unclear and can be confusing to just general community members and commissioners about how they can engage that Section 106 process. And I know when we had a tiny little bridge project trying to get built in Salem, you guys remember, that I did get a lot of questions about whether the Landmarks Commission could deny that bridge or that there would be some formal way. But with Section 106, it's different. It's all about mitigation and not about an adverse effect and not about denial. So it's a little different world than that we're living in terms of a historic landmarks commission and code. And our code is pretty unusual in that we do have an actual table for mitigation and adverse effect. And I just wanted, I love Curry. She's so warm and I miss her snacks. I didn't work with her, so I'm sure you guys miss them more than I do. But these annual CLG conferences, she would always do a great job with snacks, and she always does a great job of recognizing the work that we all do here on the front lines. And for those of you that were there, I don't know if you noticed that the picture of the shimmering trowel and the golden paintbrush, those were ours. So she was asking for pictures, so I sent them. And she's apparently going to be covering a historic code in copper and sending it for our Copper Code Award. So looking forward to getting that. When I do get it, I'll bring it to our meeting and I can show you.
City of
Anyway.
Salem is always leading the charge. The first.
I
to
know.
get these new
I love it.
awards.
I love that. So it's really
Was that
nice to be recognized. She
us?
has like a point system. So
Was it us in Albany that were the only ones that are
we're
that level?
also like always fighting with Albany. Like when we got our Heritage All-Star Community designation, it was really funny. Ann Catlin, well, I don't think she staffs anymore. She was staffing the Landmarks Commission in Albany, and she's like, I'm going to get my application in first. And I'm like, no, I'm going to get. So they got theirs in first, but we, the City of Salem, met more criteria for the Heritage All-Star designation.
Yep.
Anyway,
Very good.
hilarious. I'm not competitive, no.
We're all not.
So the last thing I just want to share is that the reason I missed part of the CLG conferences was I went, it's the first time I've gone this Indigenous mapping workshop. I'm by no means a GIS expert, but Alan Kessler, our GIS expert who helps a lot in planning, went with me to this, and he helped put together our cultural resource protection zone map. And so this was a really fascinating and really engaging workshop. And as I understand it, normally when they do it in person, they limit the attendance to people from First Nations. And so it's rare that someone like me would be even allowed to go. And so there were over 1,000 people attending virtually from all over the world, and the panels were really, really smart, intelligent people from NASA, from Google, from Esri, and also just people from First Nations talking about their direct experience. And so I was really impressed and learned quite a lot. These are pictures I took from my desk here. And I did get some PowerPoints that I'm happy to share. But anyway, I thought it was a really useful and helpful conference with a lot of tools. In particular, NASA and Google and Esri are partnering to create software that is free and it's in beta testing right now, that their intent is to remove that barrier, especially to First Nations who are wanting to document their own resources, both cultural, archaeological, and natural, and they're looking to be able to offer training and that sort of thing. So it's not necessarily something that we as the City of Salem would utilize, but just being aware that it's out there and pointing it to the tribes that we have MOUs with. So we currently have the MOU with the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, and Natasha's not here, but she's finalizing an MOU with the Confederated Tribes of Siletz, which hopefully will be signed by the end of the year. And then we'll be working on finalizing working with the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs as well. So it's pretty exciting what we're doing. And this was a great conference to listen in on and be a part of. And that's all I have.
That's really cool, Kimberly. I'm super jealous that you got to go to that. And
Yeah,
I
me
can
too.
just say that, like, by helping our partners map their resources, that only assists us in doing what we do too.
Exactly. Yeah. And they're going to, of course, have because of how much success they have had with expanding the attendance, they're going to do this again next year. They're going to offer it in March. So look for that. And if you are interested, I can send you the link to the organizer. So.
Jessica, did you have something else you wanted to say, or you?
Oh,
Yes,
I was just, yeah, I'd like some, whatever info you feel like forwarding along, Kimberly. And just a reminder too, Grand Ronde does have a story map that talks about the process they went through to map the ceded lands based on the original treaties. And that's kind of an interesting way to tell a story in the digital realm as far as how that tribe is using GIS to map their own resources.
Very cool. All right. Does anyone else have anything else to say? All right.
It's late.
It's, I
Everyone's
heard you
tired.
predicted an hour to an hour and a half.
I
like, "There's
did.
no
I
way."
was wrong.
I will now adjourn the November 19th, 2020 meeting of the Salem Historic Landmarks Commission. Everyone, please enjoy your evening.
Bye,
Happy
everyone.
Thanksgiving.
Go
Happy
Hoosiers.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Night all.
Kimberly?
Can Larry sign off right away?
Can we stop recording as well?
Oh, yes.